Hello, everyone. This is Gene Geog History, and today I'm going to be reviewing the fourth season of The Real World, which is The Real World London. So, just from looking at the cast, I recognize a few of them from the challenge, but not a whole lot because all the people who did do the challenge were only on one season and they were on the earliest seasons, which really weren't the challenge at all. And all of them were very unnotable on those challenge seasons. So, essentially, I'm going into the season very fresh. I don't really know anyone on here, and from the little that I do know about the real world, this isn't one of the more notable seasons. I don't really have much expectations going into it, and this is one of the early seasons that didn't get a homecoming, so I'm really just drawing a blank, and all these people are just very unknown overall. So I'm entering this fresh, and I'm recording this part right before I start watching the season. Okay, so now that I've actually watched the season, how do I say this nicely? It's boring as fuck. After watching the 90s charm seasons, the one season of Road Rules that I did watch thus far, and obviously the prior three Real World seasons, I'm starting to realize that 90s reality TV is not my favorite era of it, but there is a certain level of charm and authenticity in this era that I really, really do appreciate, even though a lot of it doesn't age well. I believe this is the first season where they made it an international season, not just by them locating it in a place that isn't in the US. Obviously, in this case, they located it in London, but they got roommates from all over the world to be the season. About half of them were from the US, a few were from the UK, another one was from Germany, I believe, and another person was from Australia. So there's an interesting, or at least on paper, an interesting cultural dynamic between all of these people. But when you look at the actual people, none of them are really reality TV friendly. There was very little conflict. I found most of them to be very, very boring. I didn't dislike any of them. If I met them in real life, I think they're cool, but there really just wasn't much interest going on in them. Obviously, they are here to promote their careers, and I just really didn't care after a while. And I think it's because I didn't care for the dynamics of the housemates, and I didn't care about them as individuals. And it was just kind of boring watching them do something for the career over and over and over again, and nothing really goes through. And it didn't help that the U.S. people didn't have work visas, so they couldn't even get jobs like that on the season. In general, definitely my least favorite season thus far. It's the least favorite 90s reality TV season I've ever watched thus far. This is much worse than the other three Real World seasons. Heck, it's even worse than the Road World season that I watched, and it's worse than the three or four 90s Town seasons that I watched. It will be interesting to see where the season ends up ranking as I continue my Real World rewatch. But yeah, my notes for this season is so much shorter than the prior three seasons, and I think that says a lot. So Mike is a race car driver, Neil is a psychology student who's a rocker, Kat is a university student, Jay is a recent high school graduate who's into the arts, Jacinda is a model, Lars is a DJ, I believe, and Sharon is a singer. Jay and Kat meet in New York, Mike meet Sharon in London. The first two are the first to move into their house, then Neil, then Mike slash Sharon, then Lars, then Jacinda. This is the first season where they filmed the season outside of the States, and the first seasons where they cast people outside of the United States, but they're all getting along in the first day. Jay and Jacinda miss their partners, and he calls his girlfriend because he misses her so much. They are walking around during their first full day in London. Jay is looking at the theaters in London. We learn that everyone but Neil has a significant other. I might have gotten that wrong, but at this point, I don't really care to correct it or to really find out if I'm wrong. Anyways, the cast is getting to know one another. Kat is doing school well from the entire season, which is why she's not very present in the season. The house can tell that two people, Kat and Neil, kind of like one another. And you can tell that Mike liked her too, but it's really not reciprocated. Anyways, there's some gossip about the of them, and Kat is bothered by Mike's insinuations. But, like a lot of things in the season, it doesn't really lead to anything. Mike is seen as too American to some other roommate, and he doesn't really care much for anything European, which someone like Neil is very vocal about. Neil and Kat are attracted to one another, but can't hook up with one another due to being in relationships. They have a house meeting where they get to write down whatever they feel needs to be addressed. Neil is having some issues with his girlfriend, and he got a pig's head for Valentine's Day. So it seemed like they are breaking up. But no, they're still together, and he performs a song dedicated to his roommate, which they're kind of confused about. Lars is talking about how he wants to DJ for clubs in London, and it's his goal with being in the UK, and he's used to driving the other way where he's from. So intricacies like that is interesting. I believe he's from Germany, if I remember correctly. He and Sharon are bonding over music since she's a singer who's in a jazz band, and that jazz band meets up twice a week. The house talks about her constantly being on the phone, which is annoying them because she is hogging it. There's something wrong with her throat, and she has to be out of commission vocally for 6 weeks. She has to go in surgery for her vocal issues, and we see the operation, which is eerie to watch. Her mother comes by, and Sharon is not supposed to talk, but of course she fails at that. Mike is preparing for getting into a race, and he does not have the best relationship with his father, who has the connections to help him out if he wanted to when it comes to the racing. Kat is also a fencer and wants to get more into that here as she's a competitive fencer. For most of the episode, it's about these two getting into it or whatever. Effing no. This is boring as hell. Jacinta's modeling is a huge focus in this episode, but she's a lot goofier than the average model, and it seems like she dresses up some of the women jokingly, I guess. Sharon is also applying for a job as a waitress. Anyways, there's somewhat of a split in the house, with the day people who do stuff in the day and the others who do stuff in the night. Mike is actually looking for a job, and Sharon wants to quit her job already and immediately gets another job as a saleswoman. So that didn't last long. Jay is talking about the struggles of his writing career, and everyone notices how he isolates himself from everyone and sleeps a lot. Neil is focusing on his music, and the cast sees him perform, where he was performing close to a guy's face, and they end up kissing, and his tongue is bleeding because the guy bit his tongue. What the fuck is this? Anyways, he returns after a day or two and can't eat, talk, or perform. We see him typing on a laptop that can speak for him during the confessional, and I think he might get surgery or something along the lines. That's within a month. Neil has another group that is more techno oriented that he has to perform, but he gets away with not speaking at the event. Jacinta is talking to her boyfriend over the phone, and her boyfriend is on his way soon. Mike has been bonding more with Lars, as they are very into getting with women, where one of the places they go to involves them speaking to other people at the event through the telephone. It's very interesting, or at least the setup's very interesting to me. Jacinta's boyfriend arrives, she buys a dog, and is freaked out that her young boyfriend is talking about marriage already, causing an argument. Mike finds someone that he knows from somewhere or someone, and it's assumed that he slept with the girl. Her roommate and a camera crew randomly shows up to announce it to everyone, which is so invasive, but they're never going to see one another again since she lives in Germany, and that is that. Mike is annoyed that his father is not helping with his racing, and he is visiting in a few weeks. He talks to his roommate about how his father doesn't say I love you and how unaffectionate his father is overall. Jay's girlfriend comes to the house. Mike is able to race where his family showed up as well. The roommates get to know Jay's girlfriend and Mike's family, and we finally get to see Mike racing. The roommates are starting to get on one another's nerves a bit, and Jacinta's dog is not helping things at all in this regard. The phone is cut off, and there's some finger pointing amongst the other roommates that aren't helping with the bells at all, and with the hand washing, and they're just starting to tease. Sorry. Sharon is a neat freak, and she's really getting tired of people not washing the dishes and the hand washing, and people kind of teasing her about it. But there is a set of the house guests that are annoyed that some others aren't helping with the bell payments. Anyways, they come up with a way to pay the phone bill, but the women conveniently don't have any money to do so. Mike, Jay, and Lars were the ones who paid the bill, and the women have not given the money back in 2 weeks since they paid the bill. So there's a bit of a back and forth there between Lars and Jacinta, where she's coming up with excuses about it. He then complains about the way his bike was treated. The house comes up with a game to write good and bad things about one another. Jay refuses to participate, but the activity goes on fine. Okay, so I couldn't find episode 11 anywhere, which really, really annoys the heck out of me because I'm a completionist. But if I can't find it, I obviously can't watch it. And I just really want to get this season over and done with. But it doesn't really seem like I missed much from the little I read about the episode or the synopsis of it. So on to the next episode. Mike still needs money and a sponsorship for his racing and is asking his father for a loan. Blah blah blah. We get it already. Anyways, we do see him do a bunch of training. His friend Chan comes in to help him out. Jacinta is doing more of her flying stuff or modeling stuff or whatever. Mike finally does his race and he didn't do well. So he feels worse because everyone showed up to see him and he didn't even do well. Jay can't do his play in the beginning, and we learn more about his family life, where he didn't have much of a relationship with his father, and he was raised by his stepfather, but they made up recently. Jay and Mike are bonding over the daddy issues. Sharon is helping Jay with his lights in the play, and people think that it's weird. They always think something Sharon does is weird, and it's honestly kind of annoying. Jay's father gives him a letter from Saudi Arabia, so he's trying to call him. We do see Jay do his one-man show. Lars's DJ show happens right after Jay's play, and Mike is flirting with the woman in the house. I believe Jacinta is one of the women he's flirting with, and the camera does catch them, as well as he and Kat kind of hooking up. Not like all the way, but definitely first base, maybe second base. Anyways, Kat goes on a date with a guy, and Mike goes on a date with another girl, but he's not taking it seriously whatsoever. Sharon still has her sales job, but she's having her roommates play around where Lars tells her that she needs to get back to work more than once. So essentially, they're visiting her at work, and she's too busy talking to them than like doing her work and selling stuff. Kat is still doing school well on the season, and she's taking an art class. Sharon is struggling to bond with the roommates because she's quiet, and they're kind of like picking on her, but she does cry about it to her actual friends. She's very sensitive and kind of passive. Sharon is very sick and has to be taken care of in the hospital, but she becomes back to normal and chatty as ever by the end of the episode. Jay is getting homesick and gets, he goes back home to the Portland to see his loved ones. Mike and Leo are complaining about how Jacinta tends to flip and change personalities. I wish we saw more of that on the actual season. Jay goes back to the stage of his high school to the drama club he spent so much time at and reunites with his girlfriend. Jacinta gets her tongue pierced and Jake comes up to Lennon, still being somewhat depressed. And apparently he was like this because there wasn't much for him to do because he didn't have a work visa. So that's one of the reasons why he was sleeping all the time in London. Anyways, very little is happening in this episode where I think the pet messed with the staff and we spend a few minutes on them recording their confessionals. The cast goes to a protest where the protesters, mainly Christians, are arguing against Muslim people. There's so much filler in this episode, and I think there might have been an argument about politics because Neil hates Republicans, but it's boring as hell. Mike calls everyone and everything as bitch, which bothers a lot of people in the house. Bryce meets a girl and their date is going well, since they end up sleeping with each other. Mike is on a date with a girl he seems to really like, but it's weird that he doesn't want to immediately sleep with her. Kat is seeing a boy and brings him home, and Mike is sick and tired of people having promiscuous or giving him a promiscuous reputation, which he just doesn't react well to. Morris is talking about his DJing career, but here's more about organizing events and parties. Sharon is doing vocal training due to her throat surgery earlier on in the season, and Neil is still performing. So most of the episode is about the three of them preparing for their show slash events, but Neil gets another job, but he's too good for the job, and he has a very elitist attitude about it, which is annoying as hell to me. As you'd rather be poor than get a shitty job. Whatever. Jacinta has a photo shoot that she did not like. Mike is complaining about not doing well for a race, and he returns home a bit to see family and to do another race. Anyways, Jacinta is doing more modeling jobs, and Mike does another race once he's back in the UK. The cast are going to Kenya for their cast trip. They had to get a couple of shots beforehand, though. They went to see some of the popular sites and met some people from the tribes there, and there's some awkwardness about intruding on the Kenyans' lifestyle and traditions. Mike especially felt this way. They are still in Kenya, and Sharon, as a vegetarian, does not like seeing the Kenyans kill animals and eats them. which is mostly what they eat, to the point where she's literally sitting by herself in the dark for hours to avoid watching what they are doing. They all wake up the next morning and they do some sightseeing. The cast thinks Sharon has been too secretive about her life, and she does open up about bad experiences, and it wasn't her intention to ice them out. And she gets very emotional about it. They then go on a hot air balloon and have fun before they leave Kenya. There is one more week left in the house, and they all think they're going to see one another in a few months. I doubt it. And I doubt they kept much in contact, especially with most of them living in different countries too. Kat signed up to do some poetry reading, and it is also her birthday, which the house celebrates, along with some random guy she likes. The cast prepares for their last supper, which ends up in a food fight. And of course, we end the season with everyone saying their goodbyes. Okay, so I'm gonna keep this pretty short because I don't have much to say about the cast. So Jacinda was the model and also a woman who flies around. I didn't mind her much. She had some interesting moments here and there, but in the grand scheme of things, not really the most memorable. Apparently, she wanted to be a film actress, so good for her. And she has a family, so she actually made success for herself, so good for her. Jay was the one who talked about creating his own plane, wanting to get into the theater scene in London. He got very, very homesick, but he couldn't really do anything in the season because he didn't have a work permit. So that's why he was just sleeping all the time. From what I could see, he got into broadcast journalism, became a live reporter and a morning anchor in Detroit cities, and then he did end up writing his play. So he pretty much got what he wanted. So good for him. Okay, so Kat was a student during the season. She, I think, out of everyone, was the most under edited out of all of them because she has mainly focused on that. She was on Challenge 2000, so I believe that was season three, and she didn't get much screen time there. So it's clear that she just wasn't much of a reality TV person, and I couldn't find much about what she did after the season. Okay, so Lars was mainly about his DJing and his music. He was the German of the cast, so he really had different standards compared to everyone else. And there's definitely a few culture clashes. I do remember him getting annoyed about the real situation, which I don't blame him for. From what I could see about him after the show, he moved to the United States where he currently lives and runs his own company that deals with DJ equipment and is a nationwide consultant and trainer, Pioneer Pro DJ. So he pretty much accomplished what he wanted to do. So good for him. I guess if there was a standout of the season, which there really isn't like that, I do think Mike fits it the best. He was definitely the one who was willing to flirt with the women and to party a bit more, but he was obsessed with his racing career. And I did see that he went on Battle of the Seasons 2002, where he didn't last long there and wasn't really that notable. But I guess anyone from the season, I guess it would make sense to put him there. So from what I see, he got married and he runs a real estate business, but he is also a team manager for the motorsports Grand M racing team, or he was. So he's still or he was involved in racing well after his time on the show. Okay, so Neil was also one of the rockers of the season. He was very alternative. He's mostly known for sticking his tongue down a guy's throat during a performance and the guy biting his tongue, so he had to get a bunch of surgery for that. He became a researcher and an academic in England, specializing in field or developmental disorders and language, which is definitely an interesting trend that I didn't really expect from him. He was on the challenge World's Real World, so season two of the challenge. I don't remember him much from there either. And Sharon was pretty interesting due to the fact that she's obviously the only black woman on the season, but she wasn't the stereotypical black woman as she was very reserved. She was kind of shy. She definitely did speak a lot, but she wasn't argumentative and she was kind of passive in her own way. She was very focused on getting her singing career off the ground. And from what I see, she still works as a singer, songwriter, composer, and a producer. And she was on Battle of the Seasons 2002 with Mike, but obviously they didn't last long there or get much screen time. Alrighty, so this concludes my video and anything that I feel about the Real World London. As you can see, I really didn't like this season much at all. I don't think it's aged well at all. Even compared to the older seasons, there really wasn't much reality TV in this reality TV season. The people are generally nice, and I am happy to hear that they, for the most part, accomplished their dream, so that's kind of reassuring. But there really isn't much to watch here, and I'm not shocked that many of these people really didn't make an impact on reality TV. And from what I've researched, this is like considered the worst of the older seasons, and even at the time, they knew that the season was boring, which is why they had to spice it up next season. And from what I've researched, this is like the end of the OG era where there's less producer manipulation and stuff. So, anyways, I'm going to continue watching World Rules. I'm probably going to do like the first. I'm probably going to do like a video that comprises like the first 5 to 7 seasons of World Rules and then just post it there, and then I'll do the latter half and post it in another video. So I'm going to split the World Rules into 2 videos. But with the Real World, I'm just going to continue posting separate videos like this. So when I get to the next season, the Real World Miami, that will be a separate video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back soon. Bye.